All right, good afternoon. This is Julie Kane. I am the Policy Director at the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And I want to welcome you today to the PAsmart Grants webinar for Advancing Computer Science and STEM Education Grants. With me today is also Aditya Valetti, who is a Policy Fellow at PDE. And as we go through, he will be helping to monitor any questions that you may have that you pose through the chat. So again, as I said, this is a webinar for the advancing grants of the PAsmart Grant Initiative. And if you have questions, please drop them silently in the chat, and we'll make sure that we have time to address those at the very end. Also, we are recording this webinar, and we'll be able to post that online in the next day or so, in case there are others that you know who may want this information and were not available to attend. All right, so let's begin with what is PAsmart. PAsmart, as many of you may know, is a historic initiative that was started by Governor Wolf. I'm getting all that choked up here. And it's a new strategic approach to education and workforce development. The initiative is designed to address feedback that Pennsylvanians shared with the Middle Class Task Force last fall, as well as to better align education, workforce, and economic development initiatives and funding. By working in a smarter, more coordinated way, PAsmart will make public programs and initiatives more accessible and easier to navigate so that Pennsylvanians can develop the skills and abilities they need to obtain quality jobs, and businesses can recruit and retain skilled workers. As you'll see on the screen, there are 4 parts of this strategic approach. Number 1 is investing in initiatives to support economic growth, education and training opportunities. The initiative is intended to also provide strategic coordination and alignment of public programs, services, and funding. It's for transforming interagency, cross-sector collaboration to enhance and maximize resources, as well as create better outcomes for Pennsylvania students, workers, businesses, and communities. Through PAsmart, the General Assembly appropriated in the 18-19 budget more than $30 million for these initiatives. As I mentioned, the intent is that the funding will be used for strategic, competitive, and cross-sector investments that are focused on meeting the education and workforce development needs of students, workers, employers, and communities across the Commonwealth, including those who are disconnected from education and workforce opportunities. For instance, opportunity youth, young adults, those who are long-time unemployed or under long-term unemployment. Funding will be used to support a variety of projects. And you can see here on the screen the way that the funding was distributed. PDE received $20 million for this type of workforce investment, and we're using that funding right now to support computer science and STEM education. $7 million is being used for apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship grants. An additional $4.6 million was appropriated to the Department of Labor and Industry to support next generation industry partnerships. If you'd like more information about these different grant initiatives, including the programs that I mentioned that are available through the Department of Labor and Industry, please visit the website on your screen. This is also available through the PDE website, as well as some of our digital media. All right, so let's start talking now about the computer science education grants. So for the programs or the grant opportunities that are available currently through PDE funding, there are 2. There are the targeted grants, which are structured to meet the needs of LEAs and their schools that have 0 or very few computer science offerings of any kind. These grants have a low-risk entry point for applicants and are intended to help applicants build the infrastructure that is needed so that they can apply for advancing grants in the future. Advancing grants, however, are high-level comprehensive grants that are meant to support entities that have 50 or more students participating in computer science and/or STEM experiences. The purpose of these grants is to give regions a chance to leverage or expand their computer science STEM ecosystems. Okay. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the advancing grant opportunities. Advancing grants are designed to support broad cross-sector partnerships that expand access to computer science STEM education, especially for historically underserved students and communities, through learning experiences such as dual enrollment, industry credentials, work-based learning, internships, apprenticeships, and so forth. They are also intended to expand the number of computer science and STEM educators that we have in Pennsylvania. As such, there are several funding priorities for the advancing grants. What you see on your screen now is a list of activities or programs that we are hoping to fund through this grant opportunity. We understand that any one proposal may not be able to do all of these things, but we will evaluate proposals based on how many priorities are covered. We also want to ensure that advancing grants are aligned to the PAsmart framework that was approved by the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board back in October. And here again is a list of examples of types of projects that could be funded. Again, we want to stress that this is by no means an exhaustive list. It is simply provided to spark ideas for what you may want to consider proposing. For the advancing grants, eligible applicants may request up to $500,000 of grant funds. In terms of the people who are part of this application, it's important to realize or to understand that there are basically three key components. There's the lead applicant, the fiscal agent, and then partners. We're going to go through these now. So who is eligible to apply? The lead applicant for the advancing grants may include any of the following: local education agencies, often known as LEAs, and we define that as school districts, charter schools, career and technical centers, and intermediate units. Also, post-secondary institutions, public libraries, community-based organizations, local workforce development boards, businesses and chambers of commerce, labor organizations, trade associations, and economic development entities also are eligible. Lead applicants also may apply as a consortium. As far as the fiscal agent, however, only LEAs, so school districts, charter schools, CTCs, and intermediate units, may serve as the fiscal agent for the grant. As such, the LEA will be responsible for receiving, managing, and dispersing grant funds. Fiscal agents may use funds to pay partners in the consortium for their services, however. To be considered for funding, lead applicants must identify partners to assist with expanding access to computer science and STEM education and expanding the number of computer science and STEM educators in their region. Again, eligible partners include LEAs, post-secondary institutions, public libraries, community-based organizations, local workforce development boards, businesses and chambers of commerce, labor organizations, trade associations, nonprofits, and economic development entities. So now let's go through the main application elements. In the application, you will see that you will be asked to describe your initiative as follows. We would like to know what established existing resources you have. We want you to identify the target population, describe the education, workforce, and economic needs of that target population, provide a strategy for addressing barriers to the target population, demonstrate that you have stakeholder engagement around the proposal, identify performance outcomes, a timeline, and evaluation plans, and also demonstrate that you have capacity and sustainability plans for implementing the proposal. Whenever you begin to complete your application, first we recommend that you print the application, or at least have all of the questions next to you whenever you, before you actually begin entering the information into the application system. So here's a quick checklist for you to begin. We recommend pulling your team of stakeholders together and start talking about ideas and partnerships as soon as possible. While ecosystem work is preferred, these grants are also designed to help with emerging ecosystems or in areas where maybe an ecosystem does not exist, but there is interest to begin. Also, look at local workforce needs with stakeholders. Consider how this grant will be used to address those needs. What barriers are existing in that area? How might this grant and this funding be used to address those barriers? And then decide who the applicant will be and what the nature of the partnerships will be. It's important that when you're identifying your partners, that you also consider what each partner's role is in the proposal and how they will assist with ensuring implementation as well as the desired outcomes. The application checklist includes a variety of documents. You'll want to make sure to get letters of commitment or support from each partner for the application. You'll also want to have a budget document. There is no template for the budget document. So again, refer back to the guidelines as far as the components of the budget, and then you would just upload a budget format that you would compile. Also, the optional document that you could upload is a timeline or work plan, or you could incorporate that information into the narrative in the application. To review the relevant grant information, we have a link on the screen. And then of course, start drafting your application. Because only you can submit because you can only submit the application once, it is highly recommended that you draft your answers in a separate document and then copy and paste in the application portal. This will also make it easier for you to upload and monitor and again, complete the process in a timely manner. As I mentioned earlier, we don't currently have any document templates for the budget or the timeline work plan documents. However, for each partner's letter of commitment or support, we are recommending that it include the partner's name, contact information, and role. So again, point of contact at that partner organization, an explanation of the relationship between the lead applicant and the partner, and if it's a letter of support, it would be helpful to know that the organization believes in the lead applicant's ability to lead and coordinate the proposed initiative. It would also be helpful to have the partner's relative or relevant experience and identify not only their role, but also their responsibility and commitment to the project. So in other words, explain how the partnership will work collaboratively to support the proposal and achieve the outcomes. I mentioned at the very beginning that the computer science STEM grants, both targeted and advanced, are designed to complement the PAsmart framework that was approved by the Workforce Development Board in October. As such, all of the proposals are expected to be data-driven. Data-driven and should present the clear problem, challenge, or opportunity that is supported by relevant data and a strategy to increase equitable access to computer science STEM opportunities for students. It's important too that proposals demonstrate cross-sector partnership. So strong, high-quality cross-sector partnerships should be committed to working collaboratively to implement the proposal. Equity, diversity, inclusion is another key part of the framework. Proposals should serve and provide increased access for students with exceptionalities, high poverty students, female students, as well as students from diverse backgrounds. Funding can be used to build capacity, but also as part of the proposal, the applicant should show that they have the capacity to offer this programming to K-12 students. We're asking that that applicants leverage existing resources. This grant funding is to supplement, not supplant, existing resources. And finally, performance outcomes. With this grant, we are looking for measurable performance outcomes. It's important that you provide a strategy for collecting, analyzing, and reporting those outcomes, and that you have strong goals for increasing the percentage of students, course and program offerings, and trained educators in computer science and STEM in your region. Now, I know we went through that rather quickly. A lot of this information, again, is found in the PAsmart framework document, as well as the request for proposals. However, as we've been going through, there have been several questions that have come in. So if you just give us a minute, we'll start at the beginning and we will start to address some of those questions. Okay, so the first question is from, I think, Laura Runyon, and she's asking, is the focus on computer science and STEM or mainly computer science? The focus here is, we're saying computer science STEM with a slash because we believe that computer science and STEM really do go hand in hand. However, whereas the targeted grants are focused on computer science professional development, computer science STEM, it's a computer science and or STEM component for the advancing. Again, we don't want to stifle innovation, and we're encouraging folks to think holistically. So we would encourage you to think about both computer science and STEM, but we're not saying that it's, we're putting favor over one over the other. Another question is, can an LEA be a fiscal agent for multiple projects? Yes, in the advancing grants, there is no restriction as far as an LEA being a fiscal agent for only one project, so that is allowed. What qualifies as an LEA? A local education agency in Pennsylvania is defined as a school district, a charter school, a career and technical center, and or an intermediate unit. The next question from Beth Ann Hawes, is there a character limit to the fields in the grant application? I believe there, go ahead. I'm gonna have Aditya answer because I know I'm probably gonna say this incorrectly, but I believe that there are in a few of the narratives.
Yes, in a few of the narratives, there are character limits, and those character limits have been set at basically 1,500 characters or around 250 words, but most of the application does not actually have character limits.
Someone asked about the percent fee that the LEA may charge to administer the grant. No more than 5% of the grant total may be used for administrative costs. Can you provide, the next question is, Michelle Williams had asked about a blank application rather than trying to cut and paste from a SurveyMonkey. And yes, we actually do have a PDF of the application questions. I thought that was posted, but you know what? It may not have been just yet. Yeah. We can make sure that that's posted as soon as possible, or even send that out via a link through our digital director.
Yeah.
We can do that. We can also attach it with the webinar. Thank you. Okay. All right. Here, we'll go back down.
What else is there?
Got lots of great questions.
I know, yeah.
And we just want you to know that this is a really, it's an amazing opportunity, we think, for our state as a whole. And so this was one of those grant applications where we want to really encourage innovation. And while we did put some boundaries and parameters around the grant guidelines, there are some areas that we will be intentionally vague because we really want you to be able to think big and think outside the box. Okay. I think there was one right up here about the nonprofit.
Let's see. Oh,
okay, so we had already answered the question about an LEA. Can a nonprofit be the lead applicant? And I believe that a nonprofit can. I believe so, yes.
Yes.
And yes, we will make a copy of the slides available for download. We, again, in addition to providing a link to the recorded webinar, we can also make the slides available. So the question, it says, with an ecosystem application, can participating districts participate in both targeted and advanced grants? Yes, that would be permitted. Again, however, just keep in mind that targeted grants are for school LEAs with schools that have, you know, 0 to maybe 50 students who have access to computer science opportunities. But yes, you may apply for both, and it would make sense under certain circumstances. I'll go back to that one. Can a school district act as the lead LEA for more than one? Okay, we did mention that. For advancing grants, are we required to create new courses or can we expand existing courses? You can do either, but just again, keep in mind the PAsmart framework that was approved by the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board on behalf of the governor, and that remember that the focus here is about expanding access. So it is possible that you have courses that meet, the requirements and are high quality. We just need to make sure that those opportunities are being provided to all students equally. The next question is, may a higher education organization be involved with more than one LEA or school district? Yes, that would be acceptable too. The applications are due for the advancing grant. They're due on December 28th. Targeted grants are due December 14th. As far as, you're right, Stephanie, that is a very tight timeline. The money will not be available January 1st. The goal is to be able to announce the awardees by the end of January and then be able to turn around the contracts as quickly as possible so that we can get the funding to you and you can begin your work. Advancing grants, the question is, can advancing grants cover professional development expenses? Yes, they can. Again, just make sure that those expenses are part of a holistic approach to expanding computer science and/or STEM education in your region. Will this competition be offered again? Laura, we sure hope so. It's a lot of work, but we think that there's a lot of great opportunity here. So again, this is why we are anxious to be able to get this competition going and have it come to an end so that we can award the funding and all of your areas can start benefiting. But as far as the funding, it will depend on continued funding by the General Assembly. Are salaries and fringe benefits for administration of the grant allowable expenses? Or, yeah, those would not be. Well, you can use 5% for administrative costs, but oftentimes those do go above. And I'm going to clarify that with our budget office, and I will we'll add that as an FAQ because I actually have gotten 2 answers to that just today alone. So we will clarify. Okay, and make sure that we can either update the slide deck whenever we post it, or again, we'll make sure that that's in the FAQs. So good question, Mary, and others have had that as well. Okay. Question is, how do you account for the size variations of LEAs with the same max request of 500,000 as it relates to equity? It's an excellent question. And in all honesty, what we're finding is that, and this is not always the case, but in a lot of our larger areas, we're hoping that there will be partners and others who will step up, including local workforce development boards, community organizations, and others who will help to provide matching funding or in-kind contributions to help offset the costs and maximize efforts. We also, too, are hoping and would like to see that applicants are using the funding strategically so that they really are using it to increase access and equity. Does the money have to be spent by June 30th, 2020? Yes. As of right now, that is what we are being told. The funding is available for about 1.5 years. Oops, just lost our chat room there.
Hang on one second.
And I know there are a lot of questions about who qualifies as an LEA, but again, LEAs are school districts, charter schools, intermediate units, and career tech centers. We're not able to, the question is there any thought to extending the application deadline? As I'm looking to my colleague Aditya here and thinking about, what we're going to be doing over our holiday break, Eric, we probably would love to see that. But unfortunately, in order to get the funding turned around and the awards made as soon as possible, we're under a tight timeline. We would hope, though, that through this process and hopefully continued funding, that we would have more time if another round of grants could be offered. I understand, there's a question that says, I understand that an LEA can be a nonprofit, but it cannot be the fiscal agent. Actually, an LEA is the only entity that can be a fiscal agent. Okay, the nonprofit would not, a nonprofit organization could not qualify as the fiscal agent. A couple questions here pertaining to professional development. Again, keep in mind what the goal of the PAsmart initiative is, as well as the priorities that are outlined in the framework. You know, we want to expand access to students, and how do you do that? We have to have more educators who are trained in computer science and STEM education. So we really see these as going hand in hand. However, no, there is no expectation that the funding is primarily used for professional development, though we would really encourage you to consider that, to consider professional development and ensure that that is some piece of the proposal. Is a public school eligible to apply for the industry partnership grant, the registered apprenticeship grant, and the computer science? Yes, you may do that. In fact, we would encourage you to consider all of the opportunities that are available to you. And would applying for all three affect the awards of each grant? While we are going to be working with the Workforce Development Board and our Department of Labor and Industry, I can't say that it won't, but we are going to make every effort to fully fund the requests that we receive. And again, make sure that regions, all regions of the state, are provided some type of funding. And to clarify, again, maybe I'm just not saying this correctly, but a nonprofit can be the lead applicant. So a nonprofit can go ahead and help to coordinate the application, submit the application, serve as the point of contact. You know, oftentimes when you're dealing with a lot of partners, you just need one lead who can, you know, I hate to say, but herd the cats, right? Keep everyone on the right path and connected. However, the funding itself, the actual grant funds, can only go to the fiscal agent. And the fiscal agent for the advancing grants can only be an LEA.
Got it.
Does a program have to be identified as a STEM program to be eligible? No, we're not saying that, you know, STEM programs and computer science programs come in many different shapes and sizes. We all have different names of our courses and how we define a program. So again, it's not saying that it has to carry that title, but STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, we would be looking for proposals that are going to be promoting those fields and providing opportunities to students in those areas. There's a question here about what the qualifications are to teach computer science in Pennsylvania, and is there a certification requirement for the computer science courses? So currently there is, Pennsylvania does not have a certification available for computer science. We're continuing to work with educators and stakeholders to develop that type of certification. Also, the State Board of Education in January of this year approved the CSTA, Computer Science Standards. Now, that being said, individuals who are certified in math, science, or business information technology are eligible to teach computer science courses. Now, I want you, though, to keep in mind that computer science, just because, you know, computer science really should be integrated and taught at earlier age levels. And so, you know, I'm going to take you back to that targeted grant application or targeted grant that I was describing originally, that, you know, if you're looking just to get a foothold into some districts or into some schools in your area, one way to do it is to concentrate some efforts in the early years where you don't need the, you know, intense math and coding experience. You actually can teach students computer science basics in a very elementary way. So, and, you know, if you think about it, they need that experience or exposure as soon as possible. Waiting until 11th or 12th grade may be too late for some to acquire that, that knowledge. So again, think about, you know, how you may be able to expand and really maximize those dollars in the early years. And for those early years, those teachers, in fact, would not have, right, math, science, or business IT certification. They're probably going to have PK4 or 4 to 8 certification. So this is the type of program that we really want you to consider how to get this experience integrated through all levels of education and in all subject areas. Hold on. Okay. And then also, then the last question that I think I see here right now is the 5% for all administrative or indirect costs for the entire grant, or 5% of the total grant can go to the LEA for fiscal administration? Again, I want to speak with our budget office, because I believe that I may, and I'll take it this one, I may be interpreting the information incorrectly. So I don't want to speak out of turn, Katie. Let us get back to you. We'll post that as part of the FAQs, and we will be very specific so that you have an answer to that question. There's all a question about matching funds. Again, let me, I think I mentioned this early on about the matching funds, but this is not a grant that requires a one-to-one match. However, matching component is highly recommended, and priority will be given to applicants who have matching either in kind or monetary resources. Is there a cap on technology purchases related to the project? We did not put a cap on technology purchases. Again, we didn't want to stifle innovation, so go ahead and propose what you think is needed to carry out or implement your proposal, and just keep in mind that we'll be then reviewing every budget for how it relates to not only the framework and our guiding principles for this for these projects, but also its relationship to the program at large. And if we see that there is something that we wouldn't be able to fund, then we would certainly reach out to you. We just don't want you to think that we would discount somebody immediately because they put in an ineligible expense. Okay. A library does not qualify as an LEA. However, we do allow a library to serve as the lead applicant, and we highly encourage libraries to also be partners in this work. We'll also get back to you again. There have been a few questions related to use of grant funding for materials and resources. Again, we'll make sure that that's part of the FAQs, but I just want to assure folks that when you apply, if you put it in there and we see that it's something that we cannot support, we will certainly let you know. It does not mean that we will discount your application. This is our first go around with this grant process, or this program as well. And as I keep saying, we want to make sure that folks are innovative and can think broadly on how to increase access at all levels. Can a public school be listed as the lead agency and the fiscal agent? Yes, that is acceptable, Marissa. If an ecosystem applies for advancing grant, can they be the lead applicant? The ecosystem, there would have to be at least, I know ecosystems are, again, they're made up of partnerships and several organizations. There would need to be at least one primary organization that would serve as that lead applicant. I believe I hope someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that in some of the ecosystems they have formed, I think, a nonprofit or some type of organization that would be acceptable to be the lead applicant. We just need to make sure that at least one organization, one point organization is identified. And yes, Mary and others, we will again make sure that the 5% administration fee, that we clarify that and provide that information to everyone as soon as possible. My goal would be to have that out later today or tomorrow at the latest. Can grant funds be used for a teacher's salary while she is on special assignment to design or build a new computer science course? Charlie, do you mean, for instance, that would be her salary while she was on a sabbatical? And you can get back to us. We can come back. Emily asked about the minimum number or maximum number of partners. There is no minimum or maximum, but we did have a question earlier today about cross-sector partnerships. And just want to make sure that folks, again, just keep in mind that the purpose of these grants really is to take a holistic approach to advancing computer science and STEM. And so the quicker that we can, I'm sorry, I just got sidetracked for a minute. So it's important that, I would say that you wouldn't have just one partner in all of this. In order to reach historically underrepresented groups and to really look holistically at access, you would need several partners. But there is not a required number. Yes, we will record the webinar, or actually the webinar is being recorded, and we will make sure that the link is shared, as well as post the slides and provide FAQs to you so that you have some of these questions we've been documenting as we've been talking, and we'll make sure that those are incorporated into that FAQ document when it's posted. Is the webinar going to be available in the same location where we registered? I believe they registered on the one, right? Yeah. So yes, as of right now, that is where it would be. Unfortunately, our website at PDE is on lockdown. We are upgrading and going to a new software platform. So we just want to make, otherwise we would also have the information there. However, again, we'll make sure that it is on the governor's website where you registered. And as well, we can also tweet out and also post it on Facebook so that you have the direct links.
And also the webinar, the recorded, we can also post it on our YouTube channel. So if you're subscribed to the PDE YouTube page, you can find the full video there. And it'll probably be a YouTube video when it's finally uploaded.
Perfect. And yes, an LEA can be included in more than one application. And I think I'm seeing a question from Charlie saying that you would pay her sub while she focuses on course design. And yes, that would be an acceptable cost that you would be able to incorporate and propose as part of your budget. Right. And the Twitter handle and Facebook page names, we can get that.
Yeah, but you can also definitely find them on the Department of Education's website, but we can definitely post that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And is the focus on educators versus K-12 students? What is an example of how K-12 students are directly involved? Again, I would tell you that the focus is on both. In order to increase access for K-12 students, we're going to have to increase the number of educators in our state who have experience in computer science and STEM education. So it is really both. And then can course design for new curriculum be considered in the budget? There is nothing in the guidelines that says that it can't be. So yes, that would be an opportunity. And again, as I was saying earlier, just make sure that it's clearly spelled out how that is part of your plan and then part of your budget and the budget narrative. And I think this will be our last question from Katie. This is, how do you define community-based organization and economic development entity? We left that very open intentionally because we know that there are different organizations in the different regions that have different titles. So I'm going to leave that one just very open because this work is being done, as I said, statewide by many, many different organizations and partners. And so it's not just a Chamber of Commerce or just a state agency. You know, it's not just L&I or PDE or a local workforce development board or just a library. So we'll just leave that very open for you and you can define it as part of your proposal. Okay. And I think, yeah. And some of these questions we'll be able to document, as I said, and we will do our best to incorporate those into the FAQs. But I think just to reiterate for those, because I've seen a couple more, just remember that the LEA may be a lead applicant on more than one application. An LEA could be a fiscal agent on more than one application. The advancing grants, unlike the targeted grants where only one application per LEA will be accepted and only LEAs can only receive one grant, the advancing grants are more open. Okay, there's a lot more flexibility there, including how funding is used to offset the costs related to teachers participating in professional development. Okay, so I think I've rambled for 45 minutes and you've been very gracious to stay with me the entire time. So again, applications are due Friday, December 28th. We really look forward to reviewing all of your proposals, seeing what wonderful ideas you have for expanding access to computer science and STEM education in Pennsylvania. And like you, we hope that this is an opportunity that will continue. If you have other questions, you are welcome to email those to us at pasmart@pa.gov. That account is being monitored, and we're trying to turn questions around in a day or two or as quickly as possible. So again, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. And Aditya is going to be emailing everybody that email link, and we'll make sure that we follow up with those FAQs and the posting of the webinar in the next day or so. Thank you so much and good luck. Bye.
Bye.